Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today for the Friday conversation with some friends. And we'll go around the room and introduce everybody. Shauna, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work?
Okay. My name is Shauna Lawless. I am an author. My debut novel came out this year. It's called The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, and it's a historical fantasy set in 10th century Ireland. And I've combined the history of the time with characters who have the magical powers, which is derived from Irish mythology. So it's all kind of woven together. So yeah, that's what I'm up to and what I've been doing recently.
Nice. And Jord?
I'm Jord or Jordan. I'm an avid reader, just kind of happy-go-lucky guy. Got boring.
Reading will do that to you. Yeah, make you happy and happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, Shauna's book is awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for reading it.
And Chris?
Yeah, well, I'll say, George, you're my hero. Does that help? My name's Chris. I'm a sometimes YouTuber. I even put out a video this week, which is like big news. And also doing a couple of streams with Steve. We're doing a weekly one on House of Dragon at the moment, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yes, loving that show.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Are you watching Shauna and Jord? House of the Dragon? Are you enjoying it?
It is currently in my watch list. It's as far as it's made it.
Yes, I only can watch really one show at a time. I don't have enough time to kind of watch multiple shows. So when House of the Dragon came out and Rings of Power at the same time, it was a bit of a dilemma as to what to watch first. And so I watched the first 2 episodes of each, and House of the Dragon just kind of hooked me in a bit quicker. So Rings of Power, I'm very excited to watch it, but I think it'll be a bit later. And actually, I think it'll be better that all the episodes are out and I can maybe binge that. But yeah, so I'm up to date with House of the Dragon, and I love it. I didn't realize how much I missed kind of Game of Thrones and that word that had been created. And even though I wasn't a fan of season 8, I think it's like a universal opinion. But so season 8 annoyed me, but when House of the Dragon came up, I found myself just getting slowly and surely sucked into the promo, and then it really I think it's been very good so far. I've enjoyed everything about it, really. So yes, I'm looking forward to the next episode coming up.
Nice.
We promise ourselves every time we do a stream that we're not going to mention the fact that season 8 was rubbish, and we feel every time.
Every
So didn't even last.
Yeah, every time.
Good.
Bailey Books and Sports says, "Go Ireland."
Oh yeah, I know there's 2 Irish people on this week. Is that the first time?
We are taking over. Yes.
Yeah. It's taking over. Bo Kelly asks, did any of the 4 of you catch the new season 2 sneak peek of Wheel of Time? I have not.
I
Have any
didn't
of you?
either. I didn't even see it. Yeah.
No, I haven't even heard that's out. But I did really enjoy the first season of Wheel of Time. I had only ever read books 1 and 2, and years ago. So whenever it came out, I had a vague memory of what was going on and what happened, but I wasn't I didn't know everything. I couldn't remember all the details, and so I found maybe not knowing the details and what was changed maybe made me enjoy it more than some of the fan base. And I also like kind of when you're looking behind the scenes, I know COVID played a kind of big part into some of the scenes having to be changed at the last minute. So I'm quite excited for season 2 of Wheel of Time. I think what they did with season 1 was good, and I think they'll really build on it. So that's a show that's on my watch list. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. I haven't seen it yet, so
I definitely fall into the camp of I'm really glad they're making a Wheel of Time show alongside a Lord of the Rings show and a Game of Thrones show. Again, it falls into that season 8 thing of the last episode is absolutely tragically bad, but the rest of it was fine.
I haven't finished that either, so I'm horrible at shows.
Well, I'm quite obsessive about shows when I watch them. Like I'd read all the Game of Thrones books and watched all the shows, obviously, and I was obsessive in my knowledge. You know, I knew everything and all the prophecies and what they all meant. So actually, when I watched Wheel of Time, it was a bit refreshing to not know, not be so clued in, which was the same for The Witcher as well, because I hadn't read the Witcher books. But that's maybe then why I'm sort of enjoying House of the Dragon so much, because I did read Fire and Blood. So I'm sort of having that kind of that experience again, where I sort of know what's coming up and what they've changed versus what was in the book.
Nice.
How are you finding that contrast between the kind of loose narrative that's in Fire and Blood, which I haven't read, by the way, and what they're doing in terms of filling in the gaps?
I think they're being very clever with what they're doing, because Fire and Blood is written like a history book, and you have various perspectives. And, you know, we know ourselves when we read history books, they're written from the perspectives of those individuals. And so I know some of the scenes that they have done, they've actually blended the two different perspectives together so that both perspectives have things that are right and wrong.
Nice.
And so I think that's been kind of a good thing about the show, is and they have a lot of leeway. You know, that's what's in the history books, and they don't necessarily have to 100% stick to everything. But they've been very clever so far in that they're sticking to it enough, I think, to please the kind of real hardcore fans. But they are changing enough to kind of make it more exciting, because obviously a history book wouldn't be very interesting to translate absolutely like word for word, page for page. So I'm very much enjoying it.
Nice. And our friend Spectre is here. Hey, Spectre. Library of a Viking is here. Great channel, really great editing, great content. I enjoy the Wheel of Time.
Viking.
Yeah, great stuff. I always watch his content. It's like, man, I'm really terrible at this. His stuff is just so good. I enjoy the Wheel of Time show, but the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Hopefully, season 2 will be a major step up.
I feel you there.
Really great
stuff.
That
maybe goes to show for kind of, are you having a better experience just watching it as a show versus being a book fan and experiencing a translation? You know, and it's hard because I have lots of friends who are really into Wheel of Time books and they didn't enjoy the show, versus everyone I know who hadn't read the books really enjoyed the show. And so I wonder what does that kind of say about how shows are being translated? Are they not doing enough to please the fan base? I think probably a lot of people would say maybe not quite enough.
Yeah, I don't think you have to do that, but I think it goes to when you're reading as well. You know, people take different things from the books, and the things that one person likes about the book, somebody doesn't like. So the things that I like, especially about the world, is the power fantasy of Rand, finding how omnipowerful he is. You know, how really, burgeoning, and I got none of that. So if that's what I got from the first book, and it wasn't in the TV series, then I'm gonna be looking for it, and it's not there. You go, God damn it, I'm disappointed, but I can still appreciate the fact that we get a Wheel of Time show, which I just think is just like, if you had told me 10 years ago we had a Wheel of Time show, I'd have just jumped about the house. And I don't care if it's terrible. We have a Wheel of Time show.
I think it's also hard for them to those are big books, and to try to narrow it down and keep all those tropes things in line, because like everybody's gonna have a different thing. Like, I think it's impossible to please absolutely everyone. So I'm kind of with Chris. Like, I'm excited that they made the show. Is it perfect? No, but it's there. I can watch it, and it's introduced a lot of people to the books that might enjoy that more too.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to reread books 1 and 2 and then continue with the series, because I read them when I was about 17 and 18, and I bought book 3 when I was on holiday and then left it at the holiday hotel, and then I got home and picked up another book, and kind of moved away from the series, and so I need to reread books 1 and 2. And
Can you imagine the person that gets to the hotel room after you and goes, "Oh, great, somebody left a book," and then tries to start reading Wheel of Time book 3?
I know.
That's an experience, and then they'll maybe walk away and go, "That's why it was left."
Yeah.
Leave it for the next one too.
It's probably still in that same hotel room.
It was probably a door. This was a doorstop. It's that thick and chunky. It was meant to do something other than be read.
Jeremiah mentioned unreliable narrator for Fire and Blood. I think we talk about this on our meetups for the show, but I think that may have been done intentionally to make it a little bit easier to adapt, having those gaps, to play with.
Yeah, well, that's that. There's like different perspectives, and you're very much getting their perspective on the events. That doesn't mean it's true. Obviously, I had to do a lot of historical research for my books, and one of them is very heavily biased because it's written by the family of a certain person. And so when you're reading it, you have to understand that it's not all this stuff definitely happened. This is one family's take, where their side of the family are the good guys and the other family are the bad guys. And so that's the clever thing about Fire and Blood. It's written with bias intentionally, and that's accurate. That's more accurate than probably if George R. R. Martin had written something very factual and more like kind of a Tolkien book where he kind of recounts all the lore, which is verbatim and canon. But Fire and Blood's not like that, and it makes the adaptions more interesting and probably easier for the showrunners because they can deviate a little bit and not annoy people.
That's true.
Yeah.
Gives them some leeway.
Yeah, I think it does give them some leeway the way it's been done.
Yeah.
For sure.
Bailey Books and Sport says, bought Shauna's book after the Stephen Arion interview. Good to see an Irish mythology and fantasy. Should be a fun read. How much Irish mythology did you include in your book?
Well, it's the foundation of the magical system, I suppose. So whenever I talk to people about Irish mythology, lots of people think of Irish folklore, which is like leprechauns and fairies and Darby O'Gill and the Little People, but that came way, way after kind of the mythology. So in our very earliest mythologies, one of the first stories is about a battle. It's called the Second Battle of Moytura, and it's between the Fomorians and the Tuatha Dé Danann. And so King Baelor of the Evil Eye has fire magic, and then the Tuatha Dé Danann have a range of magical powers. And there is like a very ancient transcript which kind of writes out how the battle went. And so I've used this as a basis of my two magical tribes that are in the book. So one family is descended from the Fomorians and they have fire magic. And then the other main character is descended from the Tuatha Dé Danann, and she has one of the magical powers that's described kind of within the mythology. So that's the kind of mythological side of it. And then I've kind of placed those characters in the historical setting in the 10th century Ireland, where kind of quite significant wars take place, and there's a lot of upheaval in Ireland at that time. So that's sort of what I tried to do.
I will say I'm digging into Irish history after I read. I have no idea what's going on. Like, it's not something you really learn about, but like I was like, this isn't what I thought it was, and so then I had to go back and look, and it's really interesting and fascinating.
Yes, it is a very interesting and fascinating time, and I think it surprises a lot of people because I think when you mostly speak to people about Irish history, they think of the Troubles or the Irish famine, but that's all fairly modern history. Actually, if you go back to the 10th century, Ireland's quite a wealthy country. It's sort of a player in the global scene because the Vikings are using Ireland as a base. There's a lot of money coming into Dublin, especially. So it's a kind of history that people maybe very vaguely know, but it's quite new as well, and it's maybe surprising. So I think I had like a lot to work with, and I find it a lot of fun actually to use that period of history.
It's not really taught here either. I've got to be honest. Like, it's not. Although we have a UK kind of British school system where we are, but I don't even think it's taught in the Republic either. History, aside from like Children Lear, the Culholland kind of legends that are there, those are the only things that are really taught or people talk about in any way.
Yeah, I think certainly more could be done. You know, we've never had any adaptations of Cuchulainn or the Cattle Raid of Cooley, like all these big Irish epics. You know, but we've had lots of versions of the Odyssey and the Iliad. So I think a kind of some dramatizations of Irish mythology would be really useful, and kind of bring it to a wider audience as well.
It's cool. I didn't realize how many battles were actually in Ireland.
Oh yeah, there's loads. I had lots of battles to pick from, which is really cool. But yeah, so no, it's been great actually, and people have been kind of responding to it very well, because I think they're interested in the period of history and didn't know about it, which is nice.
Bo says, open the bedside drawer and find a Wheel of Time instead of the Bible.
Stamped by Shauna.
That's my hotel. That's where I was.
And Library of the Viking says, I'm quite forgiving when it comes to adaptations. I'm not hating on it, though. Fingers crossed season 2 will be incredible. Also, just received Shauna's book this week. Oh, awesome.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah. I actually met Library of a Viking at FantasyCon in London a couple of weeks ago, which was lots of fun. There was lots of authors there, and lots of late night drinking in the bar, which was wonderful because I'm a bit of a hermit. You know, I do go out occasionally, but not very much. So it was quite nice to kind of get away for a weekend and speak to lots of other fantasy fans.
Yeah, some great photos came from that. Everybody comparing everybody else's height. You know, difference from face shots to actually people standing next to each other.
I know. So, yeah. And I'm standing beside always the tall people. So I've got Ryan and Stephen Aaron on the other side, and they're both like 6 foot something, and I'm 5'1". So.
Ryan Cahill is massive. I had no idea he was so tall.
Yeah, he's really tall.
Yeah.
And speaking of conferences, I think Chris, you had mentioned you met Shauna, right, at a conference?
Yeah. I went to the book launch. That was awesome. Actually, I would say I was speaking to my wife earlier on. My wife came with me, and actually my 2 kids were with me as well, because we kind of went into town and then went there for that going on. We got to hear Shauna do a reading. She got the Q&A done, and it was lovely to see. It was in a very Irish way. It was obviously a lot of your family there, Shauna, who were incredibly proud. So they were like clutching the copies of your book, going, "This is our Shauna," which was really, really nice. A really like warm atmosphere about it. So yeah, my wife got her copy and she's read it. She finished last week.
Oh, brilliant!
And, she loved it as well. I knew she would, though. It was very much up her street. I knew it was.
Nice. Yeah, we don't even get her hardcover book until like November. That's a month away.
I know. They had to kind of split up the dates. I think it's the 29th for Australia. So Australia's even later. Although the ebook is available everywhere, and hopefully the audiobook is coming out in November as well.
Ooh.
So,
That's cool.
Very nice.
Yes, Aoife McMahon is narrating the audiobook. So she does lots of Sally Rooney's books and like Cecilia Hearn. So she's Irish and she has like a very nice Irish accent. So I'm actually really looking forward to hearing somebody read my book to me. I wonder if it'll be weird or not. I don't know. I'm hoping it'll be a nice experience, but it might gross me out. I don't know. But
you weren't tempted to do it yourself, Shauna? No, not the Bloody Rhythm one.
No, because you know why? Because I think I could do like the females speaking.
Yes.
But usually when you're listening to an audiobook and then a man has to speak and the actress then has to do like a man's voice, I don't think I could do that.
I talked about that in the last video we did about one of those ones where a male's doing a female.
Yeah.
And I said it in the video, but I heard, John Cleese out of Life of Brian, when the other women are stoning that high-pitched voice. Well, you did like characters, and it just sounded to me like it's starting. I couldn't unhear it after that.
Oh,
so
no.
those chapters were ruined for me. Like the audiobook is terrific for that book, like really, really terrific. But literally just for that chapter, it was like, oh no.
Was it the Hellborn King?
It was Hellborn King, yeah. It was Madeline's chapters in Hellborn King, and it's such a terrific audiobook. I really enjoyed the audiobook, but it was just those chapters. Once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it.
He was very high pitched on that one.
It made Madeline identifiable. Like if nothing else, it definitely give her a way to know. Oh, this is whose chapter it is. Even if you missed the start.
That is true.
Yeah. So that was my fear, is that I wouldn't be able to do the narration justice. So yes, I thought I would defer to an actress who has done books before and sort of knows what she's at.
Makes sense.
It's a lot of reading, yeah. Spectre says, as a long-time Robert E. Howard Conan fan, I'm used to the TVs and movies not being faithful to the books, as long as it's entertaining enough to make me want to read the books.
I think that's the game, isn't it? You really, by doing an adaptation, especially I would imagine as an author, if somebody approached you and said, we're going to do an adaptation, even on a small scale of your book, Shauna, what you're hoping is that people will be more engaged with the work as a whole, rather than just the first thing that they see.
Yeah, well, that's why I suppose getting the adaptation right is so important. And I think TV has spoilt us because we've had adaptations that are better than they used to be. I think movies, just because of the time limits, we got used to very kind of heavily edited stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like The Count of Monte Cristo was one of my favorite books of all time. And even though the movie is kind of very nice and has Richard Harris and like some really good acting, it's butchered because you can't possibly fit a book that size into like a 2.5 hour movie. Whereas, we've had Game of Thrones, which was really good. Won't talk about season 8. Sorry. Doing up twice this episode for you.
I think Steve needs like a chalkboard marking how many times season 8's brought up in the background.
Should be a drinking game. That should.
It should be a drinking game.
Yep.
I know. Sorry, I brought that up again. But yeah, so we've had Game of Thrones, we've had The Last Kingdom, which I thought was a brilliant adaptation of the Bernard Cornwell series. But you have so much time, you have 8 hours, 10 hours to do a book as opposed to 2 hours.
I agree.
Yeah, but I'm because I read a lot of books and lots of my favorite books have been adapted, and I was very used to books and movies not working for me. There's like lots of films I've seen that I was very disappointed with. So I think that's always been an issue for me. It's sort of something I'm used to, which is why Game of Thrones, when it came out, it was like, oh, they've done this right, and it, I'm kind of getting all the same beats that I got in the book, which I was used to not getting.
Yeah. Jeremiah asked, did you read Bernard Cornwell's novels of that period, the Last Kingdom series?
Yes, I have. I've read them. Apart from Warlord, which is the last book in the series, and I've been putting it off because I don't want the series to end. I've loved it so much. Like I've been reading it from, I think book 3 was released. And so I kind of was that person that bought the book every other year it came out, or every year. And so I really, really have enjoyed that series. And Uhtred is like one of my favorite characters. And just as a funny aside, there's one chapter in my book where one of my characters is in Northumbria, which is factually correct. They were there. And Uhtred the Bold is in Northumbria. So he's in my book. So we have a tread in my book. I kind of managed to get him in.
Needle drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love that series. It's very, very good. And because I think it's actually good as having a kind of counterpoint to my book as well, because I think lots of people know that period of English history where kind of the English are fighting the Vikings, and it's a religious war. There's a lot of religious conflict between the two peoples, whereas in Ireland, religion isn't really the issue. And so that's a kind of a twist as well. It's the Irish are infighting is the issue, and the Vikings end up getting kind of caught up in infighting.
Yeah, I know. The Last King, I need to catch up on. I watched like 2 episodes and I made it past.
You're
You
probably
have
the
a
same
lot of
as
TV shows that you need to watch.
I know.
you're probably the same as me though, Jordan. Nina and Marlon's obsessive use of the Trid GIF is putting me off that show entirely.
Yeah. Like anytime you mention something, it's like all of a sudden they're out of water.
He's ascending out of a barrel of water, topless.
I think it's every other day it's on there.
Yeah, that is funny.
And Bo said, Jordan, you should have bought the beautiful broken binding edition.
I know. It was one of those, can I get 3 books or do I buy 1 book and pay for shipping?
I got that one. It is every bit as beautiful as it looks. It's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah. That was such a shock to get. I couldn't believe I got a special edition. So I was just so delighted. And it is, I love the sprayed edges, and it's just, I love it so much.
Yeah. I should have. Oh, well.
Well, shipping, I know it's a lot to kind of get it over.
They're not cheap. They're definitely not.
No.
Books can be expensive.
Yeah. And I bought 4 other books at the same time. So
I know Broken Binding has just so many nice books, and there's too many good books coming out. There's too much competition. Everyone else just needs to stop writing. Just let me get my book.
Here, just pause for a minute. Case Hidden Shelf is here. Just stopping by in to say hello and have a great chat.
Hey, Kayla.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, sure, Jeremiah. And Jeremiah did pick up the book, so that's good news.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, it's been great because I've been writing for so long, and The Children of Gods and Fighting Men isn't my first book, so I had a book before that I sent out to agents and got rejected. So it's been very odd kind of having the experience where you get an agent and a publisher and the book comes out and everything's gone well. So I'm sort of still pinching myself a wee bit.
That's cool. But
Our friend
That must
Epic
be-
Tales is here too.
Hey.
hey, Epic.
And tell that to Sanderson to slow down.
I know he's the worst. He's writing way too much. I just can't cope with like all his secret projects, lockdown novels that he came up with. But no, I love Brandon Sanderson. I've watched all of his lectures that he's put on YouTube.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. If anybody here, because it's expensive to do lots of writing courses. They can be hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and I will say now that his YouTube lectures are really, really good. Do listen to them instead of paying for an expensive course.
They are good. I've watched those as well. Like, I don't even write, but
Yeah,
it was just cool to see. Like, it was just cool to see like his approach to the creative writing thing and like the advice he gives, and then take it and kind of when you're reading and you're like, oh, that's how that comes into play, and you see it more in his books and stuff.
yeah,
Made it really interesting.
Yeah, no, he definitely sort of knows the craft behind the writing, which is very interesting. And also, like, it's very good that he put that up for free. That's kind of like I kind of very much appreciated that because so much other stuff to do. The writing can be expensive. And so having someone like that who's at the top of their game giving out lectures and advice for free is very much appreciated. And I know lots of people who have listened to his lectures and taken a lot out of it. And I definitely followed some of his advice when I was trying to find an agent. So it works, definitely works.
And it's great how open he has been about the struggles that he had to get published as well. You know, the very long period and the long lead-in that he had to actually getting Atlantis released and out there.
Yeah.
It was like his 10th book. And he was like sitting by himself in the bookstore when it came out. And that's how I actually picked up my first Sanderson book.
Really? Did you meet him?
Oh, yeah. I've met him 3 times now.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Wow.
Because he's 2 hour, like, Idaho's really close to Utah. So it's like a 2-hour drive away to go.
Oh, nice. I would love to meet him. I think he would just be so interesting to speak to.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but yeah. But that's how I stumbled onto Sanderson as I went into the bookstore, same college, and he was sitting there like, "Hey, want to give this one a try?" So I was like, "Sure, why not?"
Oh, that's
Wow.
so you're like #1 Sanderson fan. You were there from the very beginning.
I was, yep,
Yeah.
Is that the Stormlight hardcovers behind you as well there, Jordan, is it?
it is,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yeah. It has the leather bound and all the hardcovers.
All right. Okay.
And then he has a second. His paperbacks are on the shelf at a camera shop. So, yeah, they're all signed too. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. Nice.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice. Good to have some friends. Bailey Books and Sport. Hopefully I visit Ireland. I'd love to visit Ireland now that things are calming down. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Steve is a legend, by the way.
I am not a legend of anything. Just
You are a legend.
yeah.
The only thing is that legends are usually dead.
Living legend. Living legend.
Yeah. There we go.
And Jeremiah had a question. Was there anything surprising Shauna learned about Irish history when researching for her book, or what kind of research did you do?
Well, it was a period of history I already knew a lot about. I would read non-fiction history books about Ireland. But yes, when you're researching for a novel, you kind of want more detail and more information. So I think probably learning about Dublin was the most interesting, and kind of learning what an economic force it was becoming and how that impacted Ireland. Because I know sometimes when we read historical fiction and you're reading about the kind of famous wars that have happened, or about, say, Tudor England, a lot of the conflict in historical fiction comes from romance. So kind of like Helen of Troy, Paris, or Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII. But actually, whenever you do a lot of research, economics comes into play far more often than you would think. And it's very boring and dry. And that's why probably they're not what we talk about when we talk about history. But whenever I'm looking at Irish history in this period, there is no doubt that the changing economic shift in Ireland is like a huge factor in why it was such a time of kind of war and conflict, because the power of the various Irish royal families completely changed, and it changed really quickly. So that kind of I find quite interesting, even though that maybe sounds really dry and boring. You're talking about trade and wealth. But I think that enabled me to flesh out why the wars happened in a more realistic way. And I find that interesting. I also find, again, this also sounds really dry and boring, the Irish legal system really interesting, because it is very detailed. And there's loads of examples of the different laws and why they would be applied. And so there's one scene in my book where there's a trial, and a girl has, maybe it's a spoiler, but something has happened to her. And that is like from the Irish legal system, the Brehon laws at the time. And so I find like little details like that quite interesting. And then you put it into a book, and then it's something different. It's like maybe not something anyone would have heard of.
It was really cool. Steve's going to be reading this book soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have it ready to go on my Kindle and ready to. It's on its way, I think, soon. So
Yes.
It's nice because it gives it another scene apart from the battles and another scene apart from the things that happen that you expect to be happening around kind of wartime, the lances, and then you had that trial and what happened, that character and the resolution of that whole period was good. I think that actually really helped because it's kind of light fantasy up to that point, but it kind of sets up, she gets put off to the island, etc. Sets up that there's kind of more play here than just everyday life, so to speak.
Yeah, you also get a wee insight into what happens when Gormla has a bit of power for the day, and what she decides to do with it. But yes, but the reason why I did that scene with her is, well, do you guys ever read those posts? And it's like, am I the asshole posts? They come up on Reddit every so often, and somebody puts like something that they've done, and they're like, "Am I the bad guy, or is it the other person?" Yeah.
Okay.
So years and years ago, like this was before. I was reading Facebook, and some woman had posted up that her daughter, who was about 13, had dyed her hair. So she took the 13-year-old to the hairdressers to get highlights or blonde or something. And her husband, who she was separated from, picked up the daughter. And then the next day, the daughter came home and the father had chopped off her hair because he was so incensed that his 13-year-old daughter had had highlights and had changed the color of her hair. And so the daughter came home crying. The wife had said that the husband wasn't allowed to see the daughter anymore because the daughter was so traumatized. And then she was saying, well, like, everyone's saying I'm not allowed to do that and I'm the bad guy, but I don't think I am. So I remember that story really stuck with me. I think because I have long hair, and I think if I ever cut off my hair, I would be like really angry, really traumatized. And so whenever I read that passage about it was a real crime in Ireland to cut someone's hair, it was like very serious. It just sort of all kind of came to me, and it's like, that would be like really interesting way to talk about like violence to women, but without it being sort of like rape or something really serious. Because I think a lot of books, when they're talking about violence to women, not always concentrate on that, but they look at the very, very extreme end of it. But for me, violence towards women always starts with something a bit less obvious, and then you kind of get down to that. And so I thought it would be quite interesting to have a scene where we'd had kind of something done to a woman against her will, but that wasn't rape. It was something else, but also was a complete violation of what she wanted to have done to her own body. Yeah. But yeah, so I think I don't know, kind of gone off on a tangent here. I don't even know what I was originally talking about, but it was, I don't know. Sorry. Somebody tell me what I was talking about.
Well, that was the research and the fancy that you went, but it also included a Facebook post. I think that's a great lecture, to be honest. I can just add Brandon's these all sources of information, all inspiration. I think that's cool.
I know. But that's you go down crazy wormholes when you research.
And Jeremiah says, "Oh wow, am I the asshole with historical figures would be brilliant." It's a great idea.
Oh, well, I tell you that. So, and I can't remember what blog it was now, but somebody asked me to do Gormla as an agony aunt. And so Gormla was given like 13 real life problems, and I answered them from her point of view. And I thought it was really funny, but it didn't really get much feedback. But I think I'm going to post it again because I think more people need to see it. Because she was giving, I think, some good advice, but some really bad advice as well. But she would be thinking everyone was the asshole and not her. So
Can agree with that.
Yeah.
Gormla's a really cracking character because she's at the outset you think she's the bad person, the bad guy. I think I talked about this a little bit in the review, but not really. Just a powerful, intelligent female character living in a patriarchal society, you know, and trying to find her way about how she maneuvers her way through that. She's such a fascinating character.
Yes. Do you know, see, in history, she is not dealt with very kindly from the kind of two main sources that we have at the time that talk about her. And so initially, when I thought about using her as the main character, I thought, should I make her more sympathetic? And, you know, because lots of women are kind of not treated very well in history, you know, like your Anne Boleyns and well, there's a lot of Joan of Arc and all these historical women kind of have not been spoken about very well. And it's interesting then to flip it and see, well, from their perspectives, this is actually kind of what would have happened. But with Gormala, I just thought, no, I'm going to make her worse. I'm going to make her worse than the historical documents, because really she gets blamed for being too ambitious. And I just thought, well, why is that bad? Because ambition for the male characters of the time is seen as good. You've got all these kings and they want to be kings of more land, and that's all positive. That's kind of feted by the historians. So is it just because she's a woman that this is a bad quality, or is it really what she does that's what makes her bad? So I thought that would be interesting to explore as to, is it her actions or is it historical perspective?
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You've read it though, Jordan, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I read it for part of that tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was loads of fun. Definitely. I know I have like a lot of self-published friends who do tours as well, and they really, really help kind of just in your release week to get a bit of a buzz and get social media talking about your book. So yeah, I really enjoyed the blog tour. So thank you for taking part in that.
Of course. I do a lot of tours, especially for the self-published books and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done a couple of blog tours too. They're always lots of fun.
I do have a question about the tours, though. But first, iAnonymous has a comment. That's always a fun thing about writing historical fantasy. You read about the figures and go, were they possibly worse, or were they not so bad?
Yes, I know. iAnonymous, he has written a historical fantasy series called Gurzel and Baden Hill. Yeah, so they're lots of fun. They are set in like the 5th century, I think, 6th century. It's like the fall of the Roman Empire and Arthurian England, but then also some amazing characters from Libya. So I've spoken to him before, and yeah, he's having a lot of fun with his historical characters as well.
Yeah, gets really good reviews. Several of them have been positive that I've seen. So it's on the list. But I did have a question about tours, because I don't really know a whole lot about them. So, Jord, as a reader, how did tours work for you, for a reader reviewer?
Yeah. So it's like, especially I focus more like on the independently published, like the indie published or self-published. And like, it's really hard for them to get like other people besides like family members and things to see it. And tours finds like dedicated people like me, like allowed to sign up, and you kind of get a book for free to read, and then you hype it up and talk about it. And like, yeah, not every book talks like is perfect for you, but you can still hype it up and find the good things, which there's enough people that bash books, and I kind of take the opposite. Like, I will always try to find the good parts out of a book. But it's just a way to, like, as a reader, it's a way to find new books, like get interested in them, and then be able to talk about books in a way that, and get other people excited, like friends and things like that, and then interacting with the authors in different ways too. Like, it's been a really cool, because like the authors are always so thankful. Like when you do it, like I feel like I do nothing except for like, hey, I read a book, go read it. And but like they're always like, thank you for doing that. You've like, it wouldn't be as successful without it. And so then you're like, well, I want to keep doing that. But I love to read, and it's just fun and good way to get good books and talk about them and interact in this wonderful community.
Yeah. See, whenever you start writing, I wanted to get some feedback, and I joined a website called Critique Circle. And at the start, I put a chapter up, and I was like, what if someone steals my chapter and it gets plagiarized? And you very quickly realize, like, nobody wants to read your stuff. And I think people find that, like, when you write a book and you put it out there, it's not kind of people stealing your ideas. It's actually finding people who will commit the time to reading your book instead of the next Brandon Sanderson or the next bestseller. And I think that's something that self-publishing especially has struggled with, just because they don't have the marketing that the big publishers have. And so the book tours, I think, have made a huge difference. Because self-published books, like, some of them are brilliant. Some of them are, should be published, or, every bit as good as published books. And for the ones that are really good, they haven't found a publisher just because the genre or the theme, isn't in, or it's long, or, there's something that a publisher thinks that they would find hard to market. But that doesn't mean that book doesn't deserve an audience or shouldn't exist. And, that's why some of the kind of really good self-published books have ended up kind of finding traditional publishing deals. I think we're seeing that, like, a lot at the minute. What's the book by Travis?
Legends and Lattes. Yeah.
Right. So that was like a huge, like, self-publishing success. And, I can just imagine, like, an agent thinking, like, slice of life fantasy doesn't sell at the minute, but, it did sell. Because people don't always want to read the same thing, but kind of traditional publishing sometimes is a little bit behind the curve. They want to sell things that are more guaranteed. They don't like to take risks just so much. So I think if you read a good self-published book, you're getting something that quite often is actually more different, and is pushing kind of boundaries even more. And that's great. Like, I've read some great self-published books this year.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, the comment that's on the screen is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Thrice by Andrew D. Meredith. Highly recommended.
Oh, I guess I've heard of that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is, like, kind of the quality of the artwork and everything. You can't actually, I can't tell anymore what is what's trad or self-published anymore. So yeah, it's definitely a kind of a market in fantasy that's expanding, and there's some great quality coming out of there.
It's interesting, actually, how it works, because a bit like, I think, other forms of media, say games, movies, etc., the hype has to be immediate, and it only hits and only lasts for so long. But books seems to work a bit different. Like, I can talk about Anonymous's Girls. Like, Kayla did a review of that months and months ago, and that's in my head. That Kayla did a positive review of that a while ago, and it's like, right, that's in my consciousness now for the next 18 months, rather than having to be read then or there. I'll get to it. And that you kind of have these little mini lists in your head going, look at that one and that one and that one and that one, and they're all in the list somewhere. And, like, I just think it's bizarre how we all have these TBRs going. Yeah, I'm thinking I might squeeze that in about July 2023 in my current plan. That's where I am, and you go, right, okay, and everybody's nodding their head going, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's insanity.
Yeah. My TBR list is very long. I can only read about 2 books a month.
I am at the
kind of, and in August, I didn't read anything because I was so anxious about the book launch. I just found myself completely unable to read anything. Although I'm back reading now. But yeah, the TBR lists are endless. But yes, I think word of mouth is very important with books. I think with TV and movies, it's like instant transmission into your eyeballs, and you can make up your mind in 5 minutes if you like it or not. Whereas with books, you can't do that. You kind of need to commit at least a while to know if the book is working. So it's a bigger ask in terms of time, which is why word of mouth is so important. Like, getting those positive recommendations from people, and respect their opinions.
Anonymous said agreed, and I went and pounded the pavement. Just started finding booktubers I enjoyed. Hard work, but it paid off. I found a lot of good people and good groups doing that. Shauna being one.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a good online community. It's really funny because I was never on any social media at all apart from Facebook, which is where I was reading all these awesome posts.
Just that might be the asshole posts, yeah.
Shauna's comments on.
Apart from that, I wasn't on any social media until about 2 years ago. And so now I've kind of found it and really enjoy it. I really enjoy Discord and Twitter, especially, and talking to people. It's lovely to talk about books to other people because, like, I don't have many kind of friends that read fantasy. So you read a book and you're like, oh, this book was amazing, and then you have no one to tell that to. So I think social media has been very good for books and for writers that way.
Yeah.
And Jonathan had a comment. The culture is certainly changing when it comes to how people seek out entertainment, which is great for indie artists, but it requires individuals to be more engaged. So that's part of that social media presence too.
Yeah, I think that's the same for trad now too. I think for debut authors, especially like new authors, I think you have to interact, and I think you have to be willing to push yourself a little bit. Head of Zeus were brilliant. They're my publisher, and they're a brilliant publisher. They have loads of really cool fantasy and sci-fi writers. And whenever my book was released, I had loads of promotion, and I was doing guest blogs and had book tours and all of that. But of course, 2-3 weeks later, there's their next fantasy books coming out, and so the PR team have to move on to the next person, and they need to have their shot and their time. And so then you're left in it. Well, what do I do now? How can I help myself? And I think you have to be proactive, and certainly just talking and being available and be willing to chat. You don't have to do lots more than that. I think that's enough. And I think people value that. I think kind of that you talk to them and kind of are happy to engage.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by the whole reading a book of somebody whose personality you sort of know, because you can see the link in a lot of cases. Like I think of something like Legend of Blackjack with Andy. Like you can't help but see Andy Witham in the pages of that book when you read it.
Oh really? Oh no! Do you think I'm like Gormley?
Well, no, I don't mean that. Like, but there's like a lightness. There's like a lightness that matches his personality on the page. If you know what I mean. It's more like the theming of it, more than that being a specific character. And I think it's just you do match the author with the book, especially when the author's been quite visible.
Yeah, especially with the humor in Legend of Blackjack. The humor is where you definitely see AR's like personality shine through and all of it. And if you listen to the audiobook, it's even stronger because he narrates it himself.
Oh, wow.
So he it's really cool. He did it. He like rented out a garage at a like car dealership.
Yeah, that's not right. Yeah.
Like there for their commercials, he rented it out like one day a week for several weeks and did it all himself. But you listen, he does a fantastic job narrating it.
He narrated it himself?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
But you can hear his personality come through a lot more in that narration and those humorous spots because he puts the inflection like where he wanted it to be when he wrote it.
Oh.
So it was kind of an interesting take. It was the first time I'd heard an author narrate their own book and seeing where they put the emphasis and the emotions in it, because that's a very emotional book. Yeah. And so it was really interesting to see his take on his own writing, like in the vocal form, if that makes sense.
Yes. That is interesting. Another author I know who narrated his own book was Christopher Bielman, who wrote The Black Tongue Thief. Mm-hmm. And it's hilarious. The book is really funny, but like a lot of dark humor. And he did an Irish accent for it, so it was very good. Just if anybody likes to listen to audiobooks, let the authors narrate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Andrew.
good Irish accent. Wow, that almost never happens.
Not a
Andrew-
Northern Irish accent. I
No,
think
no.
he went for Galway. He said actually the character was meant to be Northern Irish, but he didn't think he'd get away with the accent, which, you know, it's a hard accent to pull off.
Brad Pitt will tell you that.
Andrew Meredith narrates his own audiobooks too,
Oh wow.
and always releases them at this same time. So he like tries to have a release of the audio and the ebook and everything all at the same time, so everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Jeff Lane narrated his books too, and I think it's great when when an author can. It's a big time investment though. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's tough. To answer Jeremiah's question, yes, this Hellborn King is self-published.
yeah. And the Wrathbringer just came out too.
Yeah,
That's true.
The sequel.
Is that Christopher's? Christopher.
Christopher T. Browning, yeah.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed their conversation a couple of weeks ago. They're very him and John were very funny.
But the animal murder, that'll always live in my memory. Like all.
I know. You know, because I know Mark Lawrence, and I know he gets a lot of stick for killing the dog, which is in it's in the Broken Empire series. So killing animals seems to be kind of the sore spot for lots of readers.
Yeah, I'm up. I think I'm reading. Hopefully, end of the next. So
Broken Empire is one of my favorite series. It's very dark. You know, I think you have to say that kind of upfront, and it's not for everybody. But I really just love that as a series and an exploration of redemption and if it's possible or not. And the prose is wonderful. I'm a big Mark Lawrence fan. He's probably the author I would have read the most books of.
Interesting.
yeah, I know you're part of that exclusive group, that his Patreon Discord group.
Yeah, it's very good. But he's loads of levels. So I'm on the low level. Because I have no money. But I got into the Discord group. But he does higher levels where he'll critique your chapters.
Oh, yeah,
So if you're a budding writer and you want some professional feedback, and I know like lots of the guys are kind of have that level, and he reads their stuff and they think he's brilliant. So yeah.
But
Jonathan said it's a really bittersweet aspect of artistic freedom. On one hand, it dismantles the mainstream gatekeeping of older years, but you also have to become savvy when it comes to marketing yourself.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, there's a lot more competition, I suppose. You know, it's not just the traditionally published books that are coming out. It's all the indie stuff coming out because, you know, they've really upped their game. The quality is there. The books look like professional books. Some of them look better. So yeah, you know, but I think the kind of the reduction in the gatekeeping was a good thing. I think it's allowed fantasy to push on. I think it's allowed some own voice work to come in, other kind of cultures and points of views to kind of be explored. And I think it's shown trad that people like this. You know, we don't want kind of Lord of the Rings told over and over. We want to read new stuff, new stories. So the downside is then that like whatever kind of lane you're in, whether it's trad or self, you do have to be more savvy with marketing and maybe think about that a bit more. I don't think you can just totally rely on your publisher to do everything for you anymore, unless just by luck or just the right timing, or you know that your book suddenly just kind of explodes and you know kind of goes sort of mad. But that doesn't happen for many people. So,
no.
But I think it's interesting that certainly a book can look like it explodes in our corner of BookTube or Twitter or something like that, and it seems like everybody's reading it. But that's still such a small amount of people in the big scheme of thing. You know, it can feel like it's everywhere, but really nowhere at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's well, I guess because when I wasn't on social media and I was reading all these fantasy books, and I'm like, there is nobody who else is reading these. I feel like I'm alone. But I think fantasy, the brilliant thing about it is that it's like globally a loved genre, and so kind of whenever you go on social media, then you kind of meet people from everywhere in the world who are really into the same books that you're into. And I think that's the thing. It's like we're a really strong fan base, but we're very spread out. So so I think when on Twitter and on Discord things really become big, I actually think the ripple effects do happen, and I think but it just takes a while for that to kind of move out into the wider fantasy communities and circles.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like we'll be talking about 50 people that we know all have read it and heard about it, so we think everybody else has, and then I'll randomly mention it to one person that I don't interact with much, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's that book? And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
You have to explain everything.
Yeah.
And I suppose that is the difference between traditional publishing and otherwise, because the likes of my wife haven't read your book now, Shauna. She will take it to her mum. And the chances of her mum ever seeing your book without that kind of through link and that being in the store and my wife picking that up is so slim. Because her mum's never in BookTube, she's never in Twitter, she's never in anything else. But she has a chance now to read your book.
Yeah.
And then talk about it again. I
know. Well, that's word of mouth, and it's sort of, kind of being able to kind of share the books around and get the word out. And that's where books, I think, kind of live or die. Is on the word of mouth. It's not on kind of the great first week sales or the great cover that everyone talks about. It is after that's died down, once everyone's seen your cover and everyone's heard your reviews, after that, did they hear enough to read your book? And then did they like it enough to recommend it on to someone else? I think that's where, the books kind of succeed now, unless you're a celebrity and you just have a huge fan base. Word of mouth is very important.
There was a conversation in the chat in the comments. Wanted to get everyone's opinion on. Jeremiah had mentioned about booktubers being better at marketing books and publishers, and I Anonymous was explaining that he may disagree because with booktubers are great at getting books into people's heads, but they don't necessarily translate into sales. So I tell indies, I know booktube is a slow burn, and you have to keep doing it and eventually get some fire out of it. What's been your experience, Shauna, with reviewers? How much does that help, or how much does that help boost sales? So
the thing is, I don't know, because I'm trad and I don't have my numbers. And so it was really funny. I was talking to Ryan Cahill, or Cahill, maybe was pronounced his surname. But I was talking to him at FantasyCon, and he literally knows how many people buy his books every day because he's self-published and you can just see what's being sold on Amazon. I don't know. So I kind of do various social media things, and I literally have no idea what's working or not working or what's the right thing to do. So, but in general, I find that booktubers are really important. I know all I do have any sort of correlation with is Goodreads and how many people put it onto their TBR list. And so I know when the brothers Gwyn did a review of my book, it kind of went way up. And when Nick Borelli from Out of This World, SFF, I think is his blog, when he reviewed my book, I also had a huge spike. So obviously that's on a Goodreads TBR list. So that, I suppose, only correlates to interest, not to a book sale. But I find the more interest you have, it must correlate to sales somewhere along the line. So I think it's important. I think it's important to kind of stay in kind of the gaze of readers, and you don't want it to fall to the bottom of the TBR. You sort of want it to sort of stay in the middle and then start to work its way up. But then, of course, I'm a traditionally published author, so my books are in bookstores, and I'm also getting that kind of people who are just walking in and seeing my book and buying it. And so that's obviously very important as well, kind of trying to catch people who might want to buy your book in as many places as possible. And so I think kind of the traditionally published, or the traditional publishers, that machine, it is a well-oiled machine, and it does work, and lots of people still buy their books in bookstores. And up until I got into BookTube and Twitter, I walked into a bookstore and had no idea what I was going to buy. I just browsed. So
I still do that.
But
yeah, so lots of people still do that. And so whenever kind of I had the cover for my book, they got a really top quality book designer who does lots of kind of best-selling books, and they've done that for a reason. It's a kind of a catchy cover, and they want people to look at it and to pick it up and to read the blurb, and then maybe read the first page and then take it to the till. So yeah, so I don't know where my sales have come from. I don't know if they've come from browsers in the bookstore or from people following me on Twitter or from BookTube, but I think myself it has to be a mix, and that everything feeds into it. And every reader you get is important, because I think kind of because we're very into TBRs and reading, if you have 1,000 people that buy your book, only 500 actually might read it. Buying and reading isn't like a correlation anymore. So out of the 500 people who read it, maybe 400 finish it. And then out of the 400 who finish it, maybe 200 like it. And then out of those 200, maybe 100 people recommend it to someone else, so you kind of want that funnel at the top where people are hearing about your book to be as wide as possible, so that you kind of, that funnel kind of comes down and is still quite big at the end, if that makes sense.
I like that analogy. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, sorry.
Michaela Alquino did the cover design for that, and she's wonderful. And I've seen some of the artwork for book 2, and it's also really good.
Stop it. My wife sent me on to ask you when's it coming, because she's gonna have to wait for a second book, and I was like, just be patient, it'll be fine.
Yes, so it's September 14th. It's a long time.
That's okay.
For book 2, but I am working on something else that might come out kind of midway. So tease you with that.
Nice.
You got Chris too excited now.
I know.
Well, the problem is, I think, there really isn't a lot of Irish historical fantasy, you see. So if you find something that scratches that itch, it's not like reading like an epic fantasy and there's like any amount of other epic fantasy books to read or something like that. You're searching for the little bits that maybe are like Last Kingdom, like historical fiction or something, to kind of fill that void for a little while. So it's cool.
That makes sense. Yes, I imagine, especially being from where that takes place and stuff, it probably hits a different than like what it would like for me. Like it was really, it's not like as personal as what it would be to you or your wife or.
Yeah, it's interesting because normally I just browse on NetGalley to see what's coming out that I'm not seeing, in the pre-order lists. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you see the cover and then you go, oh, this is Irish in some way. You click into it and then you go through that process then to kind of say, right, well, there's nothing else like this as far as I can see. This seems like it's going to really, really jibe with me,
Yeah, I do think kind of that sort of mythological retellings is very in at the minute.
Yeah.
And it was coming in when I was submitting this book. And that really helped because it was a kind of a historical fantasy genre. I think it's a genre that is growing, but there wasn't an Irish one. So I think that sort of helped. It's like it's something that's growing, but it's a twist. It's not another Greek retelling, or even though every Greek retelling always does really well. But it's nice to have something different as well.
It was.
It's cool.
wonder why Greek retellings are popular.
I think it's because like everybody knows Greek mythology. Like you like Zeus and Achilles. Like everybody wants to be Achilles, like invincible warrior.
There's like brand recognition with some of those gods, Zeus,
Yeah.
Achilles, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like you think about it, like even the Roman side of things, like they're basically the exact same gods, but they're not nearly as popular as like you say Zeus, and everybody's like, "Oh, I know Zeus. I love Zeus." But you say like Jupiter, and they're like, "Well, who's that? That's planet out in space."
Planet, yeah. It's the biggest planet. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny how there's not that correlation, but like Greek, like everybody knows, and then like the Irish, the Roman, all these other things are just as fascinating, but don't have that foothold.
Yeah, but it just leaves more stories to be told that are fresh and new then for people to see. If it's not a well furrowed path, then people can kind of put themselves in it, and I would imagine that helps you get published. If you find that niche or something that a publisher thinks actually this fits within this genre, but actually is a perspective that there isn't anything of on the shelf. I can't imagine that it hurts getting a publishing deal.
Yeah.
I think with Greek and then with Norse, which both sell well, I think is that there is just, I think the name recognition, and that's from like, movies like Jason and the Argonauts, from like 50s kind of to the Marvel movies. And so I think you're going into a novel knowing something already and liking it already. And so that kind of feeling that you're taking a chance on something is lessened because you feel there's a bigger chance that you will like it because you've liked Marvel or you've liked those kind of old kind of 50s kind of Hollywood movies. So I think when you're doing something new, you are asking kind of the reader to take a bit of a leap of faith. And that is, it's you're asking them for their money, and people kind of don't want to be unpleasantly surprised and read something that isn't to their taste. So that's where the difficulty is when you do something new. Is that's what you're asking readers to do.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of nailed it on the head when you're talking about traditional publishing, that they don't want to gamble. They want to invest their money in a sure thing. And that's why you see more of the Greek and Norse retellings, because it's more the sure thing for the reason she said. Like for us, it's more exciting to read something new. But for some of these other people that read 1-2 books a year, they're just going to pick up what's familiar.
Yeah. I think so. Because most people do read maybe a handful of books a year, and actually sometimes reading something similar is comforting. When the Last Kingdom series was coming out every other year, I loved it. I loved kind of being re-immersed in the Last Kingdom world. But I know some people who binge read the series say that some of the books are too similar. But whenever you're getting them 2 years apart, that's not a problem, because I like that they're similar. I like that the kind of same kind of conflicts are coming up, and you're getting Uhtred and he's fighting kind of like all the kind of Wessex royal family members. So yeah, comfort is another thing as well. It's the same reason why kind of you watch the same movies over and over again, or if you have a favorite actor or actress and they're doing another rom-com and you like their last rom-com, you'll give that one a go because there's sort of comfort to be derived from the familiar. But then of course you can't do that over and over. Even those readers eventually will want something new, and you need to provide that as well. Like Head of Zeus, I think, are a brilliant publisher because they do take risks. They over in the UK anyway, they're the publisher now for Christopher Rocchio and Ken Liu for the Dandelion Dynasty and Adrian Tchaikovsky. They've got so many cool authors.
Superstars. Yeah.
Yeah, but even and up and coming, they're kind of they're not afraid to take risks, and I really like that about them as a publisher.
That's really cool.
It is indeed.
Just want to mention really quickly, Anonymous said, actually, funny thing, I'm currently doing my free promotion for Bait on Hill. Yes, it's free right now, and a lot of people are downloading it and buying book 1, Gurzel, which is a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Don't want to jump into book 2 without reading book 1. So
Yeah.
To really annoy us and to talk about Game of Thrones again.
No,
As long as you don't mention a certain season, we're good.
I don't know. People might not have taken their drink yet.
It's ready.
I won't talk about that. But there has definitely been an impact on the book community on having that series unfinished. And so I think Anonymous was saying, once the second book is out, people are more willing to take the chance on the first book because they're like, oh, this author is producing, he's got the output is coming through, and I'm not going to be stuck reading book 1 and then the series is never completed. So yeah, I think that's a very good strategy. You need to, when book 2 comes out, actually you sometimes end up getting more sales for book 1 than you do for book 2, but that's still good. That's still kind of bringing people into the world that you're creating.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because most of us will be stuck in like this problem of reading never-ending book 1s all the time.
Yeah, that's me.
God, I could continue on this series. I really enjoyed, but there's another book 1 of a series that I know nothing about that I heard in the grapevine that'll stick 500 pages in my reading schedule for.
Well, I think, wasn't it in Dom's Discord, Chris, that like Terry has like 200 and something series to complete?
What the hell?
Like he's just started that many series, and he's like, if I don't get another book, I still have 200 and something books to read in order to complete the series I started.
But Terry has also like read books, series that have like 50 books in them, and like
That's
give
true.
them all 5 stars as well. Like I just marvel at him sometimes. I go, this is incredible. This is legacy that you're gonna leave. It's amazing. of the Umbridge series and these serious commitments to long running.
Yeah,
amazing.
I think whenever you're on BookTube and you're seeing all these great series coming out, you want to give them all a go. And so that definitely happened to me once I started getting into BookTube and Twitter. So I think this year I sort of made a commitment. I need to actually finish some more series before I start new ones. So that's what I'm doing this year. I'm sort of finishing, so then next year I can go into some new books.
Yeah, I need to do that too. I don't want to count mine.
As I said, there's too many good books coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
too much,
tough.
too much temptation, too many kind of different things. But no, October, November, December is my months of finishing. So Warlord, which is the last book in the Last Kingdom series, I am 100% reading. I need to just buckle up, find my courage, and just find out how it all ends.
Finish it.
What other series are you planning on finishing? Oh, we lost Chris.
Sorry. Who are you asking first? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. We lost Chris. Chris dropped out.
Oh.
But which series are you looking forward to finishing? Which other series?
Okay, so I really enjoyed The Pariah and The Martyr by Anthony Ryan. So his third book, I think, is coming out next year. So that series is brilliant. I'm really, really excited about finishing that. I am on the Red Queen War series by Mark Lawrence. So I've read the first 2, so I have to finish the third one for that. And trying to think what else is on my radar. Oh yes, so I read Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. So I need to read books 3 and 4 for that as well. Because I want to have that series sort of in by the time the next book's the 5th book's released. But I really enjoyed that series so far. I wasn't just so blown away with Mistborn. It wasn't like a total favorite of mine. But yeah, Way of Kings, when I started reading that, completely blew me away. I think it's a fantastic series. And the writing and the epicness is sort of a bit more maybe to my personal tastes. So I'm really enjoying that series.
Yeah. I do think that Alaman is by far my favorite magic system that I've come across in a book. just loved that magic system. It was just different. The very first time I read, like ingesting the metals and the powers you get from it. I don't know.
For Mistborn.
Mm-hmm.
No, I did enjoy Mistborn. I don't say that to sort of say it's not a good series. It is a really good series. But just like Brandon Anderson, he does lots of different genres and age groups, because he wants to, I suppose, market his books to everyone. So just Way of Kings is like, that's my my series that I kind of have really clicked with.
No, I agree with it. That like it's the writing on that one's like way better, but the magic system from Mistborn is what I loved about that one. That's what kept me in that series more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I do get that. I think actually when I picked up Way of Kings, I think I was just, is it Kaladin? Is that how you say his name?
Kaladin.
And Bridge 4. Just I've never been so stressed out. Reading his chapters, which is just the mark of a fantastic writer, that they can really make you feel so anxious. So definitely I want to get to the end of that series. I've been putting it off for too long, I think, just because the books are so big. But I need to just get them read.
Yeah.
How about you? What series are on your radar that you've started but you need to finish?
For me or Steve?
Yeah, for you.
It's funny. I need to finish The Faithful and the Fallen. No, it's not a favorite of Steve's, but
Yeah.
but I need to finish that one. Right now I'm reading the arc, like it's book 3 of Wistful Ascending. So it's like superheroes in space, which is really funny, really cool. So I'll be caught up on that one. What else am I don't know. There's too many to count. I've started so many book ones. Like I could probably go to my shelves, but I have been like, I finished Threadlight, I finished some good series too this year. So, but those are the main ones that I know that I'm not caught up on, that I know I need to, that I'm most excited about catching up on.
How about you, Steve? What's your series that are falling to you?
Well, we're in the middle of reading The Expanse. I'm reading that with Chris. Reading that series. We're doing a weekly podcast meetup for the Prince of Nothing. So we're reading that. Reading what else am I reading? Oh, the Dandelion Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? I think that might be it, because those books alone are pretty chunky. So,
what book are you guys on The Expanse?
We're on book 4. Sibyl of Bern. Yeah, started it yesterday, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't read them yet, but I keep saying I need to. But it's one of those, like, I will read it one day.
Yeah, they were. Have you seen the series, the TV series?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen 3 episodes. One of those.
Oh yeah.
TV.
I should have guessed.
You're only watching like 2 episodes of every single series.
Everyone tells me they're good, and they are good, and I just don't make time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got very picky with TV shows as well. Like if after a couple of episodes it's not grabbing me, I don't kind of continue.
Yeah, my wife gets upset at me because I'll just start shows and then we never go back and watch any of them.
Yeah.
Does she wait for you to watch them, or does she keep going without you?
She watches her own shows. She just starts them and finishes them on her own. She just knows that it's never going to happen with me, I think. And Chiago's here. Mistborn greater than WOK. There I said. Way of Kings.
Way of Kings. Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, that's my friend Thiago Abdallah, and he wrote A Touch of Light, which is brilliant. It's a really, really fantastic self-published book.
It is. I talk to Thiago almost daily now. So.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to twist his arm to come on, but I haven't been able to get him yet.
Okay, Thiago.
Come on. No, he said
Steve's request.
Yeah.
He just had a baby though, so give him a little bit.
That's no excuse. No, he's really wonderful. He's a wonderful guy. It's great talking to him. Jeremiah said the Expanse TV series is so close to the books. They did a great job on that adaptation. They did a really good job on it. And sometimes I wonder, why am I reading the books? Because I already know what's going to happen. But there's a few differences. And Brandy from the other room said, Steve did that to me with The Last Kingdom. I really want to keep watching. I just haven't gotten back to him. Yeah, we watched the first season or two and then kind of just fell off. I haven't continued, so you're not alone.
At least seasons.
Is so good. You need to keep going.
At least you can say seasons, not episodes.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
he hasn't read.
So,
and he's sitting in the dark with the baby in his arms right now.
Oh.
Mm.
Oh,
I know my youngest is 7 now, so sort of out of the baby zone.
You're back.
You back, Chris?
Internet's just disappeared in the house, but we have ways and means.
Oh no! I'm glad you can make it back.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Jim Mulborn says Chuggo has been really taking advantage of the whole I have a life to take care of excuse. Yeah, what's going on here?
I agree, Jim. 100%. Every time it's like I'm doing my real job. I'm like, no, your real job is get me book 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Daniel says I regard the entire Cosmere as being basically one big series anyway.
I agree, especially as you can't say too much because Shauna hasn't read it, but as you finish it, books 3 and 4, you see a lot more of that. So the more you know about the Cosmere, the more investment you have in that series, I think.
Yes, no, that's interesting. Kind of because like, how many books are there released already that are all linked to the Cosmere?
Elantris, Warbreaker.
Then
10 to 12.
Okay. And is it obvious that they're all related, or are you is that all like kind of hidden and you're looking for
if you know what you're looking for, like there's a whole Reddit page that can break it down a lot better than I can. But if you know what you're looking for, you can definitely see it, especially in the Stormlight archive.
Okay.
With Wit. Wit appears in all those books.
That's right. So there's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Because Mark Lawrence has done something similar with his series. There's like one character that's in all his books. But when I initially read his books, I had no idea that they were related. It was only kind of later on with the Book of Ice series that kind of it became apparent that they were linked.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I'd read 5 of Brandon Sanderson's, I think. So I read all of Mistborn and then went back and read Warbreaker and stuff like that. And then I started noticing a certain name that pops up on a page.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know how spoiler we want to get, but
yeah, no, don't spoil. I was just wondering how obvious it was that they were linked, as in would it kind of is it very obvious, or is it more kind of it becomes apparent, as you said, after a few books that you're noticing that there's things that match up?
It's not, he doesn't come out and just like blatantly show it until like later in the series, but like if you know what you're looking for, you can find it in book 2.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the flashbacks, you'll start seeing like magic systems from another book series being used in Stormlight Archive.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yes. So I definitely need to kind of read books 3 and 4 then. Yeah. Yes. No, I will. That's definitely on my list to do this year.
Yeah.
More books to read. Perfect.
Yeah. This. And then the sword is a big one in the series too. Like as you get in books 3 and 4, there's a sword that's in another book.
Be really careful.
I have it's so hard to not just come and say everything, but I know there's probably several people that haven't read all of those books, and so I don't want to there's characters. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Warbreaker is the major Stormlight tie-in. 100%.
Okay, so then here's my next question. Should I start to read book 3 of Stormlight, or should I read Warbreaker first?
Read Warbreaker first.
Okay. Okay. I shall. I have a copy of it. Okay, I shall do that.
Yep. Read
And
Warbreaker first.
That's a standalone book, sort of. Like, that's not a series.
It's a standalone right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
That's right. He's talking about writing a sequel or something to it, isn't he, Jordan?
He's talked about it for years.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be an Elantris sequel too.
Okay.
But when they'll ever, there is the novella that's in the Elantris world that's really, really good too. Like that completely different writing style than what he normally does. That's probably one of my top Sanderson books, actually, is that novella, just because it's so different. Can't think of the name of it right now. The Emperor's Soul has a lot more of like the Korean culture that he's really familiar with. Like he ties a lot of that into it, and that's really good. But yeah, but read Warbreaker first, because you'll notice a lot of things from Warbreaker in the Stormlight archive.
Okay. No, that's on my list. Then I'll read that first.
Yep. Yeah, like if you read books 3 and 4, like it'll still be really good, and like it won't ruin the story at all. But you'll miss a lot of those subtle things that he's thrown in there that show that it's actually from this other spot.
Okay.
Jord being vague as
I-
much as possible.
It's huge. Like they're big spoilers, and so I don't want to just come out and say it and like ruin like whole books. And then everybody would be like, never listening to Jord again. He just ruins books for me.
I know it's very hard to talk about books in a non-spoilery way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially like in a live stream like this one. Like it's one thing like when you can edit it and like, oh crap, I shouldn't have said that. But
yeah, no, I know.
This is exactly what your YouTube channel should be about, though, Jordan. You know, when it finally happens.
it'll happen.
Yeah. We'll have to nudge you that way.
I know.
And Chris, when you were gone, we were talking about the series that we're finishing or want to finish up soon, and we were talking about The Expanse. We're reading The Expanse together.
We're doing that,
What series are you wanting to finish?
Well, I've a book 3 to do of Mistborn Era 1. If we're going to talk about Sanderson, which I've enjoyed a lot. I think I put it in page 2 earlier on that like Sanderson, I love all his books, but I wouldn't consider him like one of my favorite authors for whatever reason. Like they're really readable. The plot is so good, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, it just doesn't tickle me the same way as like Christopher Rocky's series, which I'm reading as well, like the Sun Eater series.
It wasn't until I read Way of Kings that I was like a diehard Sanderson fan.
Yeah,
because I've only read I've read the Steelheart series, the YA series, which I think is really good. A lot of people don't seem to gravitate or talk about that very much, but that was the first series that I read from start to finish. But yeah, looking forward to Stormlight Archive.
Yeah,
sure.
I think he'll move up your list once you read that.
Yeah, for sure.
Read that one.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm reading Christopher Rocchio at the minute as well. He's very smart. You can see in his writing. I thought Empire of Silence was really very good. Very captivating book.
Yeah.
Harlan Dark's something
Chris
else.
and Steve.
Oh man, Harlan Dark's something else.
I'm so excited because I don't normally read sci-fi. So it's different. It's sort of a bit of a change up for me.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited about reading it. I was meant to read it in August, but then that was my month of being completely unable to write because I was so stressed. So I couldn't read anything. I was so stressed out. So August just was a write-off. So I'm sort of starting up my reading again.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those things too, Shauna, that feels about like 6 months ago, given how much has happened since August. And
Yeah, September, it was just a sort of a crazy month, really. So kind of it feels like the book has been out for a long time now, but it hasn't. It's only been out really for 5 weeks. And that's only in the UK, it's not released in America or Australia yet. Although, sorry, the Kindle books are out there. But yeah, it's all time has lost all meaning. But, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Have you seen your book in a bookstore yet?
Yeah, it was in, well, my book launch was in Waterstones. So they had about like 100 copies in on the launch day. So they had like a big wall of my book, which was really cool. Yeah, so that was wonderful. Although my mum was in the other day and she said she couldn't find any, so she was raging. But then I was like, well, that means that they sold them all, so maybe that's good.
Well, I was in last week, and it's the same thing. I couldn't see it either.
Yeah, so hopefully they get some new ones in soon. Yes, and I was in another bookstore and it was there, so that's been nice. I've actually had lots of friends from the south of Ireland sending me photographs of my book, which is nice. It's always nice to see your book is out there, because I think you worry sometimes that it's not and people aren't seeing it. Especially with Waterstones having all this over here, they're having this huge issue with their distribution centres and warehouses, so books aren't turning up in the bookstores or being delivered to people.
Yeah, there's a lot of gaps in their series, like major series. Like Stormlight Archive, there were none in that Waterstones that I was in the other day. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I think it's. I think they put out a statement today saying that the issues are resolved. But they've had these issues for about 3 months now, and I know some people are saying that some Waterstones they've been into are quite bare because they haven't been getting their delivery. So that's actually, I've had other friends who debuted at the same time as me, and they're been saying that that's impacted them quite badly. They've had lots of people texting and emailing to say that they've ordered their books and they haven't arrived. So hopefully that kind of all resolves soon. They get that kind of sorted, because I suppose it's important that your books in the stores as well.
Well, Waterstones is the whole ball game here, aside from Tesco's carrying Marion Keys and
I know David Williams and
actually Colin Eagledon. You were talking about Greece earlier on. Like, Colin Eagledon will make it into supermarkets here. Bernard Cornwell will make it, but that everything else is the very the fantasy, the lighthearted, what is that genre that my mum reads? It's the Marion Keys, the
rom-coms.
It's like the romance.
It's not even totally like rom-com either. It's like nothing really happens. My mum doesn't want anything to happen to the book, really. You know, she just wants to kind of exist with the book for a while and go, oh, that was nice, that was sweet, you know, that was
Richard Osman, obviously, over here is huge at the minute.
Right. Oh my God.
So I was in Goldsborough Books when I was in London a couple of weeks ago, and they got me to sign their stock. So they had about 100 books in that I signed for them. And there, where I was signing, there was just like a mass, like there wasn't any space on the floor. It was just filled with cardboard boxes. And I was like, oh, like big delivery in today. And they're like, no, that's just Richard Osman.
For those that don't know who Richard Osman is, like the host of a game show here, and he's written a couple of like crime novels, and they've really taken off. They're just top of the bestseller list all over the place. So much so that he's given up the game show.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh
wow. He was coming in apparently to sign them the week after me, and he must have had 5,000 books there to sign. Easy. Like there was just boxes and boxes upon boxes.
Such a downer after yourself, though, Shauna. Like, they'll just be like, "Oh, Richard Osman's here." Oh,
get Shauna back. With this, it's wonderful. Obviously, like all books being sold are brilliant. I don't mean to be disparaging to him, because he's totally tapped into another niche market, which is he has got 4 elderly protagonists who are detectives. And that's another thing, you always hear like lots of fiction are about young people, but a lot of people who read books are older, and people want to read about kind of themselves. And so I think it's brilliant that he has sort of found something different to do within that kind of cozy mystery genre, and that's why he's doing so well.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the name. So.
Yeah, I didn't either. I like a mystery every once in a while, but
Those are by far, and I mean by far and away, the best-selling books in the UK, and have been for about the past 2-3 years.
Yeah.
His third one is coming out rather than out.
No, I think it's out now. I think that's
It's out
why
now, is it?
that's why all those boxes are there. He was.
Oh
he was
yeah, of course.
yeah, I know Nina and those guys kind of gave me Chris Carter.
Oh yes, they talk about Chris Carter a lot, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually got one of those books just because they kept talking about it, saying they're like the best like thriller books they've ever read. Like,
It's that Discord thing of as soon as you mention an author's name, somebody goes so good or something like that.
mm-hmm.
You go, okay, so it must be really good.
Yeah, like because like Nina said it, and then like 4 other people were like,
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing,
We're all
amazing.
reading those.
mm-hmm.
And then there was somebody else read the first one and they went, "No, you're right." And that kind of recommendation that goes way further than just the general hubbub of all these. I love this author. And
Yep.
Somebody reads it new and they're like, "Yeah."
Yep, that's exactly why I bought the book. Is like they said Chris Carter. Like Nina was saying, oh, if you like reading thrillers once in a while, I was like, yeah, I do. And then she got somebody else to read it, and they're like, no, that's awesome. And I was like, okay. So then I went and bought book 1.
Yeah. I find it hard to read thriller and horror books. I get too scared after I've finished reading them.
Steve loves them though, don't you?
Yeah.
I've never been scared by never been scared by a book. Ever. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about reading. Like, you get tense. Like, don't get me wrong. There's like a tension that the author brings up, but I never kind of went, "Oh my god, put that down." Not the same way that I would a movie or a TV show.
Oh no! What was Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? I was just about able to read, but the sequel, I was so scared I had to close it, and I just have never picked it up again.
I think the only time that it happened to me, I was in high school, and it was Mary Higgins Clark, and the main character gets buried alive, and like goes for like 3 chapters of like can barely breathe, and so then like I didn't realize at the time that I was like,
you stopped breathing as well.
Yeah, like
oh, it makes me shiver even just talking about that.
Yeah, like has the like main character has a bell that they can ring so that people know that they're buried alive, and like it was pretty intense as a like young reader, not expecting something like that.
But it's something I talk about with my kids a lot. About when no matter what they're watching, reading, or anything, when they like cry or get scared or anything, and they're like, "Oh God, I don't like those type of books, or I don't like that kind of media." I was like, "Do you know how skillful it is for somebody to actually do that for you?"
Yeah,
like you'll want to read more of that. Like I remember going in and someone was watching anime and finished the end of the series and was howling all over this, and I mean completely howling. And they're like, "I'm never watching another TV show again. That's it. We're done. I can't be like this ever again." And I was like, "But you have been literally howling. What other thing in your life has made you do this? It hasn't. It's not reaching into the deepest parts of your soul like art does, and like books or media or it does. So yeah, keep on doing it. Like that bit's cool. You'll get catharsis out of it further down the line to say, "Oh yeah, I want to feel like that again."
Yeah. No, books can be very, very powerful that way. Have you ever read the book or seen the movie Atonement?
Oh, the Hume book. I haven't read it or seen it.
Well, I was in such a bad mood for about a week.
Really?
Yeah, really upset. Yeah. But then, like, I was really angry and upset and annoyed by the book, and then I watched the movie, and I was really annoyed, angry, and upset by the movie as well. But yes, but then you appreciate sort of the storytelling and why it's done that, do you? And that's very, that's kind of cool. But yeah, sometimes I have to be in sort of the right space to kind of be upset. If you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
I will say, Legend of Blackjack was a self-pub that hit me in the feels too. Like he pulls no punches.
Yeah.
So, and
he knows what he's going for, and he's definitely taking you along and sets it up from the first chapter. That kind of relationships that you have, and yeah.
And then Mistborn did it to me when the one character dies. I did slam the book shut. So I was very upset. So, yep.
Everybody dies. I don't know. I don't have this.
He wasn't supposed to, though.
Yeah.
At least in my mind at that time. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's something like a fantasy, and then like especially Grimdark is good at that. It's good at sort of kind of giving you those unexpected punches and deaths and things that you're not expecting, and that's good sometimes to kind of be shocked into an emotion as opposed to expecting it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Tiago's talking about Legend of Blackjack.
Yeah.
Yes, I do need to read that. It's on my list as well. Here, but let me tell you that. Ask you this: is that suitable for a 12-year-old?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
for sure.
100%. He wrote it with his son in mind. That's a 14-year-old.
Okay.
So he wrote it for that. Like, it is definitely young adult. Like, yeah, it hit me in the feels, but it's nothing.
Okay.
It's a little dark thematically, but nothing dark happens. You know what I mean? It's not like in that way. You know.
It's like Harry Potter would be like dark things are happening in the world, and like there's dark elements, but it's not dark.
Okay. Yes, because a young adult I find such a unhelpful title.
It is very unhelpful. I agree.
Some young adult is like Sarah J. Maas, and some young adult is Harry Potter. And in terms of content and suitability for teenagers, like younger teenagers, I'm never quite sure what's suitable and what's not.
No, I agree. I kind of look at the Hunger Games that way. Like, I don't think that like it's labeled as young adult, but I don't think like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old should be reading going and killing other kids. Like that's not suitable. Like 17, 18-year-olds can understand the difference, but and
it's so it's having that conversation. I don't know, when I was growing up, I just read whatever I wanted, and there wasn't, I don't know, was young adult a thing maybe about 20 years ago? I don't know.
I would have
it's
thought
a new genre that's come out, but it's very as I said, uninformative as to actually what age it's appropriate for. Whereas at least if you're reading an adult book, you are more convinced that maybe some things won't be suitable or whatever. But young adult is just, you never know. But my son, he's has to get the bus to school now, so I was thinking about maybe getting him some audiobooks. So I know you're recommending it earlier, so maybe that'd be a good one to get him.
Yeah, no, that one would be safe. So
yeah, okay, that's good. Good to know.
And Tiago's going to bug you to read Legends of Blackjack every day now, Shauna.
I know. Well, no, I will. I promise. I'll definitely read it.
Yeah, I think Tiago says that's his number one book of the year that he's read. So.
Wow.
But it's really good.
But he can't mention his own, you see. He can't be that vain to say. Like,
this is good. This is really good.
I love The Touch of Light. It is probably my favorite book of the year.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It was.
I love it.
It's like one of those books that, it's not very tangibly related. The characters, you've got your 3 separate POVs, and he's not spoon feeding you as a reader. No. And I sort of said to him, I kind of compared it to Malazan that way, as in, it's all a bit initially disjointed, and you have to work to kind of find out how everything's related. But that's fun. It's nice not to be spoon fed all the time, and to work things out and to kind of make up your own mind as to who's good and who's bad. And so I think it was a wonderful book. Definitely philosophical as well. I liked how death was explored and how the different cultures view death and what it meant, and that was very interesting. So it's definitely one of the my top books of this year too.
Yeah, I agree. Have you read it, Steve?
I have. It's on my list. It's
group readers, I think later on. Yeah, I think possible.
It's on my list before the end of the year. Hopefully, it's just hard to find the time. But yeah, it's been on my
the other
list
70 books.
Yeah, because I know you loved Drowned Kingdom, and it's like it has a lot of those similar elements into it.
Okay.
like of the themes and kind of that kind of thing, but a lot more fantasy heavy.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I hear lots of good things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrific.
His novella is actually coming up soon for me to read. I love novellas. I love kind of getting like a nice little snippet into a series. But I was sort of holding it off. I'll ask him later because I like to read a novella kind of a bit more between book 1 and 2, so you kind of have a refresher before you go into the second book. But yeah, I love a novella.
I actually read his novella first, but I wish I read it second. So
Okay.
Oh, it's controversial.
it is. But I have like I like how I got tied to some of the characters in there, and then right as soon as you start book 1, it's like, what? Like they're gone.
Yeah.
It's not very spoilerish, but like they're dead within like the first 20 pages. Like you're like, hey, I just invested all that time in that. Like that's what I liked about this one. And it would have been better. For me, it would have been better like reading it as like kind of a flashback to those characters instead of being like, all right, I'm ready. Let's go with this. And then it's like, oh, this is not where I thought it was going. So.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Jim's novella is coming out this month as well.
Yeah, Jim Woodward.
The Promised Land, indeed.
I'm almost done, Jim. Almost done with the 7th cadence. So.
Oh, that's right. You've been doing the read along in India Accords, haven't you? That's right.
Yeah.
I've been popping in, seeing what everybody thinks.
Yeah. No, the India Accord buddy reads are more like Lana's and my TBRs that we both had similar books. To be honest, like we're just like, all right, these are books we want to read. If people want to join us, they can. If they don't, no.
I am the worst person ever to do a kind of buddy read with. I just can't. I either read them too quick or too slow.
Yeah.
They really help me finish series. Finish the series up because it's that. Like with Chris, we're reading The Expanse together, and with Robin and Layla, and we just plan it every month. Say, okay, next month, what day are you available? And we put on the calendar, and then I know I have to have it done by that day next month. So, but it helps keep us going.
It helps focus, yeah, for sure. Because there are times when you kind of go 50 pages of like 7 books, to try and get in, and you haven't really committed to anything. And you're like, oh, this is the most unsatisfying period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wish I was better at doing buddy reads, but I don't think I've only ever, I think once successfully completed a buddy read on schedule.
Yeah.
I think it's the pressure.
Yeah, there's pressure. Leslie from the Nerd and Narrative is here. I was going to read the novella next month and the book in December, but I switched them after you said that, George. So
see the power you have, George. This is unreal. Casual comment. People's plans are all thrown up in the air.
It still blows my mind that people listen to what I have to say. But
what's been so before the time always flies in these, but before we go, I just wanted to see what everyone's currently reading now. Shauna, what are you reading now? What's on your what book in the middle of?
I am currently reading Blood Eye by Giles Christian, which is a Viking series. So I am reading that. And I am also reading, I'm beta reading for a friend. So I'm reading his novel, which is brilliant. And what else am I reading? And then once I finish those 2, Howling Dark is next up. As I said, I'm trying to commit to kind of getting through the series as I've started now. But yeah. But the Blood Eye is a historical fiction, actually, but it's not fantasy, which is good. I think I read a lot of fantasy books in a row, and I think sometimes it's nice then to switch genre a little bit and kind of keep it fresh.
Yeah. And Leslie is reading your book next month, Shauna.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Leslie, let me know when you plan to read that. Maybe we can work something out. And Jordan, what are you currently reading?
Currently, I'm reading The Seventh Cadence by Jim Wilborn. Reading the arc of Blood Reunion, which is book 3 in Hybrid Helix by JCM Byrne. That I just did that cover reveal for. And I just started on audio the underwhelming epic of a dead wizard and an average bard. It's a mouthful of a title. Struggle to remember it, but I will say it's made me laugh in the first 20 minutes of listening to it. So
Nice.
Looking forward to it. But yeah, Hybrid Helix is probably my top series of the year. Came out of left field, accepted a copy from the author, Wistful Ascending. You'll look at it and be like, oh,
It's like it's
I don't
a
know.
cover.
I gotta read that, but it's in my top 5 books of the year. So
Wow.
for reads, if you like superheroes and you like science fiction, then you'll really like that one.
Nice. What about you, Chris? What are you reading?
I'm reading Sabola Byrne, book 4 of The Expanse at the moment. I've started on the drive in Orbit of Sirens by T.A. Bruno as my other book in the car. And I'm due to start Wrathbringer, Christopher G. Brennan's second book in the Hellbringer saga as well. So that's kind of what's in the sphere at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah. The In the Orbit of Sirens is a fantastic audiobook as well.
Yeah, seen Esme's review of it earlier on, and yeah, I started it earlier on just to keep us upright.
Yeah, yellow jumpsuit for the win.
Yellow and purple.
At a certain point, people scratch their heads with that cover, but it's so iconic now. You definitely couldn't change it.
No.
You got to stick with it now. But cool. I want to thank everyone for hanging out tonight. And Shauna, can you tell us where people can get in touch with you?
Oh, yes. Well, I have a website, but probably Twitter is the best place. If you sort of write to me or kind of tag me in, you can find me there. I'm in some Discord groups as well, but I suppose they're harder to find. So Twitter.
What about you, Jord? When can we expect your BookTube channel to start?
Shooting for end of the year, beginning of next year.
Nice.
Is the overall plan. But till then, you can find me on Twitter at JordBucks or in the India Accords Discord.
Nice. And Chris, where can people locate you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Chris Mohan or on Twitter at 7 o'clock Shadow. And I'm going to keep on bugging Jordan until he takes the plunge.
There's several of you. I get a message a day saying, "When are you starting?"
You and Esme could do a launch together because we're bugging the both of you, so it'll be good.
It's true. Yeah. I think you ping both of us almost weekly. We need to start.
These things are important to me. I don't know what to say.
But
I want to thank all of you for hanging out and spending your time. Shauna, thanks for staying up late with us. I know it's getting late for you.
Oh no, it's no bother. As I said, I'm a night owl, and the kids are all in bed, so this is relaxation time for me.
Nice.
And I've got to spend a couple of hours talking about books and fantasy TV shows, and they're all my favorite things to talk about. So, thank you for asking me to come on.
Yeah, anytime. Any open invite. So any one of you, just whenever you're available. So cool. Well, thanks everyone in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us and throwing us questions and comments. It's always great when people are around to interact and adds to the fun. So, but cool. Hope everyone has a great weekend. See everybody soon.
see ya.